Right. So today I'm going to talk about building data-driven organizations. Quick agenda. I'm going to give a bit of background on data-driven organizations. Then I will give an overview of the data-driven journey, and you'll realize fairly quickly what that means. I'll go over what companies do today and their challenges. What people think they should be doing, and what people should really be doing. So, real quick about me, those of you that don't know me, what do I know, who am I? Hey, data is my life, I know. 10 years in the data industry, I worked as a senior consultant for Informatica, which is a Gartner leader in data management software. Then co-founded Peak Consulting, a London-based system integrator, and then founded Eccella, which is a data analytics company between New York, London, and Bombay. We build data-driven organizations leveraging data strategy, business solutions, which is a combination of COTS, which is off-the-shelf software, commercially available off-the-shelf software, and proprietary kind of custom stuff that we build, and kind of custom implementation. So basically, this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years. So what and why? What is a data-driven organization? And feel free to talk or don't. What do you guys think a data-driven organization is? Yeah? I'll follow you.
Well, actually, I'm not a test.
Okay, no worries. How about you?
I would say that a data-driven organization is an organization that really values the data that it collects for all of its operations and makes business decisions on the basis of what they see in the data through regression analysis and something like that.
Yeah. Overall, yes and no. I like part of it. And we'll go on a little bit in a second. So is it big data? A lot of people say, being a data-driven organization is big data. Is it analytics? Is it Skynet? Take over the world. And why is it important? What's the advantage of having a data-driven organization? Huh?
You can make objective decisions.
Objective decisions.
So we're trying to get why people make their decisions in context of the aspect in which to
Yeah. There's some challenges about that. I mean that it also implies that you trust your data, and that you know that your data is correct, and that sometimes your data is going to go in the face of, say, 20 years worth of experience that you haven't run into things. So is data created in people? Right, so a quick aside on big data. And a little gripe that I have with big data. I think it's incredibly valuable. But what is big data? So real quick, can someone tell me what big data is? Yes.
You know what? I've heard people describe it not as a lot of data, but as very great.
Okay, that works. Listen, what big data is and what big data has become are two very different things. So initially, when people in the industry were talking about big data, they would talk about people that had data sets that were larger than 2 terabytes. That's a lot of data. That's much more data than most companies have or consider or need, right? So, but everyone talks about big data and how we need to concentrate big data and leverage big data. And it's kind of thrown around quite a bit. But in essence, what it originally was is that organizations like Google, Facebook had very large data sets and could then do predictive analytics, which would give them valuable insight and competitive advantage over their competition. Right? So that's basically the origin of big data. Now what it's actually become is that it basically means data driven, right? It basically, today it's used interchangeably with exactly that, with leveraging information to make smarter decisions. Now to me, what's more important than big data, and what I think really becoming a data-driven organization is about, is pervasive data. What I mean by pervasive data is that everyone in the organization has data and uses data and leverages data. Now, maybe they're doing super fancy analytics, great, but by and large, most people aren't. Right? And that's fine as well, as long as they're making their decisions based on reality and information and knowledge. So, data available to all of you. So the chatter, a little bit about what everyone is saying about data today, right? So use data to make better decisions. Harvesting data is certainly a compelling one. How to do it is a challenge. Okay, McKinsey is saying that if you inject data analytics, you'll get 5 to 6% higher than your competition in productivity and profit gains. But they also talk about how it's really difficult and there's a huge investment required, right? Harvard Business Review, big data analytics are at the top of the corporate agenda, right? It's those that have used it, Amazon, Google, have eclipsed competitors, but most companies are leery of the big investment that they need to do, and they aren't ready. So we're seeing a trend here. Everyone knows how important it is, but unless you're like Google or Amazon or a tech company, no one seems to be doing it, right? So the economists, companies are integrating data into their day-to-day operations based on data and analysis. They're aware of the importance of it, but they don't know where to start. Okay? CIO. Companies that embrace data-driven culture rate themselves ahead of their peers by 3 times in financial performance. Right? Forbes, the winners are companies who find a way to expand the number of people who leverage data. And last but not least, I won't go on forever with these, TWI, which is a data warehouse institute, is basically saying that becoming a data-driven organization infuses analytics into all operations. And this is kind of what I meant before about pervasive data. But it's not a simple or quick process. Right? So why is that? And actually there's one, we had our data and decision professor, Sharif Hassan, had a really nice way of putting it, which is from decision-driven data making, which is making a decision and then finding data that'll kind of help you justify it. Right? So organizations that act based on experience as opposed to based on data. They find the data to support that strategy. I like to call it, the bikini strategy. Bikini is important in what it reveals, but it's vital in what it conceals. You can kind of pick and choose whatever data you want to tell a story. 2, data-driven decision-making, which is leveraging the information that you have available, trusting that it's right, and then using that to make intelligent and informed decisions. So, here's this paradox. It's clearly important. What's all the confusion about? Why are people afraid? So the reality is that it's really hard. And it's really hard because it's more than just a strategy for your own affirmation. It's a culture within your organization itself, so that everyone in your organization is making decisions based on data. Right? For me, it's every level of the organization. So, now from my experience in literature, etc., I've kind of distilled the data-driven journey into what I see as 5 steps. And you'll see these kind of steps common throughout most of the literature and what people are talking about today. So the first is planning, next is operational awareness, then excellence, then strategic excellence, and then cultural shift. And I'll briefly describe what each of these are. So first is planning, and this is really a come to Jesus moment of where do I stand as an organization, right? So how do I currently make decisions? How does everyone else make decisions, right? So is it based on intuition, on experience, on data? What KPIs do you have, right? If you go to, you work at McKinsey, you go to business school, all of a sudden you know exactly how you should be thinking and what are the important KPIs. But what information do you actually have for those KPIs? Do you have everything you need? What are you missing? How confident are you that it's accurate, right? And then it's where do you want to be? How do you envision making decisions in your organization? And then really thinking about, well, which functions in the organization are most critical, and do I want to focus on really becoming data-driven first? And then you can develop this plan for transforming your organization into a data-driven organization. Next is operational awareness. So I'll quickly go through these. If you recognize that section, I don't know how you Yes.
Can you go back?
Sure.
Can you give an example for the kind of decisions that are made in Google, in Amazon, or in Eccella?
Yes. So well, Google and Amazon are kind of ahead of most. But
Or maybe it's simple.
No, it's segmenting which customers to go after. Right? Who are the customers that have the most value, and how do you define them? What attributes will those customers have so that you can know, okay, well, anytime I get someone who's like this, I'll be able to go after them. But it's from that to also on an operational side. right? Amazon and Google have very large operations that they have. And Google needs to know exactly when they have how much load on which of their servers and networks, so that they can kind of reroute traffic around and leverage which service for what. Right? So it's everything from the strategic and customer-driven to the operational. And that's basically what I'm about to get in here, which is operational awareness. Right? So once you have this plan of, okay, this is the end goal of where I want to get to, these are the important things in my organization, now I need to actually know what's going on in my organization, and that's operational awareness. Right? So most people might know some of what's going on, but if you ask the average manager exactly at any point in time, all of the key metrics of his customers and his operations, most of them won't have all the information, because it's not easy to get all of it. And if they have it, they don't necessarily trust it, because it's people that have been entering it manually, and there's a lot of kind of human error involved. So first you need to understand your operations and your organization department. So examples would be exactly that. What are customers actually buying? Which of my products, right? When are they buying it? How long does it take for me to process an order? If I'm a pharmaceutical company and I receive an order, from the moment I get that order, how long does it take for me to put it into my fulfillment system, interact with my inventory management system, see if I have the inventory, and then go, and if I don't, order it from a manufacturer, if I do, talk to my logistics provider, right? So how long does that entire end business process actually take, right? What's taking a long time? How can I cut that down? Because that's going to impact customer satisfaction potentially, as well as my operations as a whole, right? So to get operational awareness, the first thing you need to do is connect all of your applications together. And this is kind of a foundation of systems integration. And then you need to start looking at the actual information itself. So if you have data that's stored in a CRM, customer relationship management system for sales, for kind of prospecting, and other information that's stored in your ERP system, which is your transactions, right? And then other information that's stored in your support system, you might want to get a view of all three of those. But how do you do that if the data's in all these different systems, right? How do you, as someone who's going to go and try and target a customer, know if they're actually maybe having a lot of trouble right now with one of the products that they bought? Right, so how do you get that information? So the first thing is operational awareness. What's going on in my company? And that's your access to key metrics. Next is operational excellence. Okay, so now once you have an idea what's going on in your company, you can start fixing things. Right? You can start seeing, okay, I've got a bottleneck in this business process for fulfilling an order. If I'm a hospital, I can see that there are really long wait times right now in this particular wing. Maybe I'm understaffed, right? So you can kind of get all this information from your operational awareness, and now you can start fixing things. But beyond that, one thing people generally notice once they have access to data is how much of it is incorrect, right? So you can start having data governance, which is actually fixing the data and correcting it. Your addresses might be wrong, your data might be incomplete. Someone tried to buy something and you didn't have their first name and last name, so you just put in Mickey Mouse. You'd be amazed how many companies actually have Mickey Mouse as their customers, and their customers are very lucrative, right? Phone numbers might be 9999999. How do you reach out to someone if that's the case, right? How do you segment appropriately, right? So it's and maybe one system, maybe your CRM system has incorrect information, but maybe your customer support system has the right information because someone contacted you because they needed help. So it's data governance. It's kind of fixing the data that's in your system, and it's also automating your business processes, right? So a lot of these things, historically, as companies grow, people start from doing things manually, right? You get an order by email, so you open the email up, and then you go and you put it into your order fulfillment system, and then now you have to go and you have to kind of export your orders, and you have to maybe email them to someone in manufacturing. Right? You can automate that entire process. And that eliminates human error, it increases, it reduces the amount of time. So all of these things that you can do in terms of automating business processes are part of operational excellence. Okay? Right. You can also integrate with external entities, and these are your customers. So instead of getting an email and then manually putting it in, you can have a system called EDI, Electronic Data Interchange Format, right? Where a distributor, say Walmart, or a large organization like Walmart, can automatically send orders that will automatically go into your systems, and then you'll automatically get them. Right? So this is all part of being a data-driven organization. It's not just what amazing insights can I have, it's how can I automate the business processes that are manual, error-prone, and inefficient and slow and costly. And of course, you need good applications to manage these things. You need an ERP system. Enterprise resource planning kind of helps you manage your resources, right? So what you're buying from your vendors, what you're selling to your customers. Most of them have HR and financial modules. You want good CRMs, customer relationship management. This is your Salesforce, your Siebel, right? So these are applications that help you manage your prospects and your customers. So you know who they are, when you've reached out to them, and what the sales life cycle is. And there are various other applications, and we'll get to them. And basically, you want to have insight into KPIs to make better decisions. And then we get to strategic excellence. And this is where a lot of people think kind of a data-driven organization is. And it's definitely an important part of it. There's definitely a huge value to it, right? And that's bridging the gap between strategy and operation. So now once you know what's going on in your company, and once you kind of fixed and automated a lot of what's going on, how do you know which customers you should really target? How do you know from a strategic perspective which products you should be developing? Right? How do you know what's going to happen in X or Y scenarios? And that's what these predictive models are about, right? And it's how to source vendors. So these predictive models of deep insights, and basically you take the history of your data and of your transactions, and you use that data as kind of training sets, and then you use machine learning and kind of data science concepts to build these models to help you predict what will happen if I do X, Y, and Z. Or a project we did with while working with Veteran Affairs was we're trying to prevent the spread of infectious disease across the U.S. Right? So we would analyze basically how has disease spread in the past, and then as you look at the different parameters of where there are instances of disease of a specific disease occurring, you can predict, okay, well, what are the chances that based on these weather patterns and these incidences, etc., that it's going to go somewhere else. Okay? So that's a predictive model, and that's kind of the cool, sexy stuff. And really the idea here is that you can find a way to close this loop between your high-level strategy, which is made at the executive level, and how that's going to impact your operations. Because you can run these different scenarios and model. Okay.
Question about the previous slide. So I get where you're particularly representing like customers and products involved. Can you give an example of how you use this for vendors? Are you talking about like these are the ones that
supply chain is a perfect example, right? So if I'm a Walmart or if I'm a Best Buy, I want to make sure that I use a vendor that so I'm going to have multiple vendors globally for different products, right? And I want to make sure that the vendor that I have will always be available, that I will always have a vendor to get product from in case of overload, in case of burnout, in case of weather patterns or issues that I have. What is it that I think there was a tsunami at some point in Asia that kind of messed with all the access to memory and RAM, right? So what do you do in those scenarios? And who should you then use, and what are your options around that? Does that make sense? Basically, that's around the whole supply chain. I mean, there are other things you can try and figure out as well, which is how reliable they are. A lot of it depends on your business. If you're a business that, a CPG company that has thousands of different products, then you're going to want to know kind of where you should be getting them from and how you can use your logistics to get there. And potentially what prices you should pay as well, depending on the market, depending on various things that are going on. So, lastly is cultural shift. And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier in terms of pervasive data, right? So this is change how everyone makes decisions at every level in the organization and match the available data that the organization has and the various models that have been generated perhaps by your data geeks to their specific needs at every department, whether it's HR so that they can hire better, whether it's kind of sourcing so that they can find better vendors, whether it's marketing so that they can target people, but really everyone in the organization, right? So that's ideally how you build a data-driven organization. But what really happens today, right? And where's the disconnect between what we spoke about at the beginning, that everyone's talking about how this is amazing, and what happens? So this is the fun part, evolution, right? So you start a company, and you start with what? Right? Basically email and Excel, and you've got it, right? You don't even need to register or pretend you have a company. And then maybe you'll build a website, right? Because that's important. And if you're trying to sell shit, you'll build, you might get a point of sale system or e-commerce. And then you've got a company. Someone can, my mother sells books on Hebrew literacy, right? So we've got a nice little website. People send, go to the website, they make an order, goes to an email. She then emails the printer to print out a copy and, right? There you go. Now you have a company. Now, what happens as your company starts to grow? All right, so the first thing you might get is some financial software, QuickBooks. Then you might get a CRM to keep track of your customers. Then you might get a time and expense system because you started hiring people, and those people need to put in their time and expenses. Then you might get a PLM, product lifecycle management system. So if you're manufacturing something, you might need this. That's how you kind of decide what your bill of materials is and kind of the entire process for that. If you're manufacturing something, if you're not, then forget PLM. You might, as you hire beyond 10, 12 people, get an HR system, start keeping track of people's quarterly reviews, annual reviews, and raises. Right at some point, as someone who's started with companies, Excel and Google Docs just doesn't cut it. Next, you might start a ticketing system if people have problems with your products. Right? So you'll buy a ticketing system, or you'll get a subscription for one, and then people have issues, they'll go on your website, they'll enter a ticket, and then you'll have someone from customer support. So now your company's kind of growing. And all this stuff might happen in 6 months, might happen in 2 years, might happen in a couple months. So now you have all these different systems. Now, shit starts to get complicated. So you're going to want to start to define these processes and document them. How are you going to document your processes? Maybe Excel, maybe PowerPoint. Okay? And that way, if you're out, you can kind of get to someone else to do, and if they're out or sick or firing because they're assholes, you can find someone else and they can pick up. Right? But basically, you can see that you've got all these different systems, and things start to break. Because the systems that you've got, the applications you've got, were meant for when you were a 5-person company, not a 15-person company, definitely not a 30-person company. And somehow now all of a sudden you're putting in information from your e-commerce site into QuickBooks. And how do you do that? Right? At some point you can't enter in every order manually. That's in the ass. Especially if you start doing really well. So what do you do? Right? And that's basically the chaos that you start with. Right? So you have multiple applications that are trapped in siloed departments. You have your sales department, you have your operations, your fulfillment, your HR, and those department might be one person, they might be 5 people. But all of a sudden, everyone in their department has gotten their little application to work, and they're kind of trapped with their data there. And if you want to communicate, usually it involves someone exporting something into Excel or CSV and emailing it to someone else. Right? If you have some sort of question about kind of which customers are requiring most support for a specific product, you're probably going to have to take information from the sales system and the CRM system and the support system and ask 3 different people to send you an Excel export, and then you'll sit there for 15, 20 minutes trying to make sense of it all and trying to match it. Hopefully it does match, so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. Not exactly the most efficient way to do that. Right? So, and then, next is your system break. So that CRM system that you got, or QuickBooks really isn't gonna, even if QuickBooks isn't gonna, grow with you to be a $10 million company or a $100 million company. Whatever simple website you have might not work. With the CRM, maybe use Zoho, which is pretty cheap shit you can get off of Google. That started to break. You want to get a better one. So now you gotta move stuff from your existing systems to better systems. Now, how do you do that? Again, Excel is one way. It's definitely not fun because the stuff in the old system was in a very different format from the new system. You got to somehow transform it and hope that it works, and you got to do this for 200,000 records because you want your history so that you can make decisions. Or you could just cut it off and just forget about everything that happened and start from ending. It's another option. Right? So how do you transform data from your old system to the new system? How do you connect these systems so that they can start talking? Okay? Anyone know? Anyone work in the data industry? ETL. You know what ETL stands for? So this is what data-driven organizations is really about. This is the less glamorous part. So ETL is extract, transform, load. Okay, this is a kind of area called middleware, which is a really kind of name that almost belies how little people thought of the importance of ETL, right? It's that stuff in the middle between one application and another. And really what it is it's almost like pipes. So it sounds boring, but really ETL is more than just pipes. It's the foundation and infrastructure of an entire organization's data, okay? So what does it actually do? It's data integration. It connects one system to another and transform it. So it literally stands for extract data from one place, transform it somehow, load it to another, okay? Now you can use this not just to move data from an old application to another one, or you can use it to actually integrate your two applications together. So every time I do a sale, right, and things are going through my point of sale or my e-commerce site, I want to load that into my ERP system so that I can fulfill the order, right? And maybe I want to add a whole bunch of information about that in terms of filling the address up and making sure that it's correct and adding a whole bunch of other details. So now this is all logic that needs to go somewhere. Now, someone could either hand code it in like Java, which is a pain in the ass, and then when they quit after a year and a half because that's just what they do, you have no idea what they've done. Or you can use these tools called ETL, which are visual tools that help you really kind of implement this logic. Okay? So you can implement business logic, you can automate your business processes, so that entire kind of flow that I was talking about getting an order and then pulling it into your ERP, then having every ERP push it to your inventory management system to see if there's data there. I would see if there's product, and if there is, then to integrate with your logistics provider so that they know to pick it up, and then to send a notice to your customer to say that you're going to mail them something, and then to integrate with your financials to actually create an invoice. These are all things that ETL can do, okay, that ETL does. So this is automating your business processes. And basically it can help you supercharge your applications, and by that I mean now your CRM system, instead of just having the name of a customer or a prospect, you can add in all this other information from these other applications, because now you can connect the systems together. Okay, so now when your marketing person is looking at their CRM or your salesperson is looking at their CRM, they don't need to look at 3 different systems or ask for an export of data. They can get all the data directly just from their CRM. Right. So some examples of software for ETL or Informatica, Talent, SSIS, DataStage, SQL is hand coding. These software will run you like 50K to $1 million or more. So it's not cheap.
Is that just for the license to use it, or is that
just for the license to use it? If you want to start building stuff on top of that, usually building the quick ballpark for implementation of anything is like 5x what you pay for software. So if you're paying like 50K for software, usually they'll end up paying like 250K to implement whatever it is you're trying to build. Which isn't something that a small company can really do, right? So that kind of sucks. And that kind of cuts out small companies, which is why you end up seeing these things only in larger companies, which is why everything tends to get really chaotic, right? There's a company called Cochlear. They make cochlear implants. Amazing company, great product, $500 million company, and they didn't have a system to connect all of their applications together, right? Because they just grown organically, and shit just happened. And it was only like at some point that they realized, okay, now we really need it. Now we have the money to get it. So next is enterprise data warehouse. Who knows what a data warehouse is? Don't be shy. Okay.
a wild guess to say where you store your data?
Yes. Very good. But it's not just a place for storage. So a place for storage would be an archive. Right? A data warehouse is more a single comprehensive view of an organization. So really what you do is first you build a model of your entire organization and all the data that you have from all of your applications, which is why this can be a little bit of a bitch, right? Now once you have a model of your kind of organization's operations and a place to store all this data, then you start using ETL, right, to load the data into the data warehouse. And really it's just a set of tables in a database, okay? Right, so you customize, you make your own kind of custom data model, and there are basic theories around how to do that so that you can kind of store all data across all time. And really you can, once you have a data warehouse properly built, you can see at any point in time how your organization was running and what was happening, what was going on, who was buying what, and how much money you had, and all those things. So it becomes very useful to do your analytics because you can't just do analytics. You can't just generate reports off of nothing, right? If your application knows how to generate reports, then maybe you can get the specific report that your application will generate. But otherwise, you need to get the data from somewhere. And usually, like a reporting tool can't necessarily sit on top of QuickBooks or even Microsoft Financials, right? So what you do is you build this model of your organization. It's called a data warehouse. You set it up, and then every day, or even in real time potentially, you pull data into this data warehouse, and now you can start, getting data. Now the question is, how do you get the data from the data warehouse? Right? Data's in a database. Anyone know how to get data from a database? Queries, right? SQL. Now, how many people in your organization do you think know SQL? Right. So if you want to have a data-driven company where everyone is, getting access to data, then SQL is pretty useful. So that's why we have reporting dashboards. Okay? So now you just paid a bunch of money to build a data warehouse, say $100K, $1 million, $2 million, depending on how large and complicated your organization is, right? Now you need to actually get the stuff out of it. So now you need to buy more software, which is data and analytics, which is reporting and dashboarding software. So BI and analytics software basically helps you create pretty reports and charts, so you can have and dashboards so you can get insight, so that people that need to know the data can see the data. It's called data provisioning, and this is critical, right? This is enabling your stakeholders, the people in your company, to actually make decisions, because now this is what they actually see. This is the most important thing for them. Okay? Now let me ask you this. If you're in an organization and you want to get a report on a specific amount of data, how do you do it? Your company has this tool, this software. Do you know how to use it? You might get trained up on it. Depending on how technical you are, you might be able to learn it. But by and large, what will happen is you have to explain it to someone in the IT department. And you have to hope that they understand what you've asked for. And then maybe in 2 weeks they'll give it to you. And in 2 weeks, it's probably too late to actually care. Or the data might be stale. Or maybe you realize, actually, you didn't want to know what it returned was irrelevant. Like, let's say that you want to find out how many customers buy a particular brand of phone in the Northeast for a specific demographic, say 20 to 45, right? And let's say that nothing conclusive came, or it's not interesting to you, and now you want to change it to 45 to 60. Now you got to go back to that guy and ask him again and wait another 2 weeks to get your answer. And that's not a great way to run an organization. But this is literally how most organizations run, right? Banks, manufacturers, retail. This is how they run. You have a question, you'll go and ask IT, and they'll come back in 2 weeks with a report, and hopefully it's the right thing, and then you'll have that report forever. Right? And that report's important, and you can keep getting it. But hopefully it's right. But nothing is real time. So in today, where everything is happening in real time, you need to make decisions. Right? 2 weeks is an eternity. Some of these tools, historically, have been Oracle Business Intelligence, Cognos, Sodexo, Microsoft. These are all companies that are starting to, or software that is getting less and less used, and I'll tell you why. Right? But this is traditionally what companies have used, and still today, the vast majority of your billion-plus companies will be using these tools. Right, so now you have these reports and these dashboards that you run your business on, you make your decisions on every week. And what happens, and now you're relying on these systems, and you've got data integration connecting all your applications, you've got business processes that have been automated, and you've got reports and dashboards that are helping with decisions, and now shit fails, right? The server goes down. What happens? Right? So your business is shut down because the server went down, and now you're waiting potentially for, so Bausch & Lomb, one of my customers, had an application in place. They had an old system that would run their entire fulfillment for billions of dollars worth of goods, right? Every day they would receive millions of orders. And at some point a few years ago, the system went down, and they literally could not process orders for 3 days. And how much revenue they lost. Okay? So the result is, when companies start to rely on these systems, they need to make them highly available. And you might hear this term, highly available, disaster recovery. And what that really means as its redundant systems. But it's not just redundant systems, it's the applications themselves are actually configured in a way where if one dies, everything keeps running live, okay, and it never stops. Now, what this also means is that your cost management, because you're depending on these systems, it means to be highly available. Okay? Next, you're running everything, and you realize that the quality of your data is pretty crap, right? And why is that? Because data is often entered manually into applications. You might be getting data from external sources that aren't your own. It might not be trusted. It might not be standardized, right? So types of data quality issues that happen very frequently are missing data, incorrect data, inconsistent data, non-standard data, right? Someone might write Native American in one place, might be Indian in another. We had this issue actually at Veteran Affairs, where we were getting in data that was being entered into their kind of day-to-day hospitals, and this hospital data was coming in. And if you can imagine the types of ways that people call diseases, that people call ethnic backgrounds, that people misspell names, right? And here you are trying to necessarily potentially see what has this patient, what families have they had, and how many times have they visited, and you actually don't get all the information because you're looking up a John P. and it's Jonathan P. and in wing one. So data quality becomes a critical issue, and not only that, data quality also becomes one of the easiest ways to extract value and create value for an organization. So data quality tools basically have a few different components to them. The first is discovery. So they let you analyze data sets and automatically kind of give you profiles of how much data is, how many unique values you have, what are the different types of values, what are the different patterns of values that you have, right? So you can very quickly see if you have numbers in a name field, right? If you don't have enough numbers in a specific phone field, you can look for all the phone numbers that aren't included, right? So you can kind of start, you can look at all the addresses, you can automatically validate addresses, you can look at all the addresses that are incorrect. And that's a great, easy one in terms of, well, I'll get to that in a second. So once you've kind of discovered and analyzed your data for what's wrong with it, now you can build these rules to clean, and these are reusable rules to clean data and to standardize data, to enrich data. So some enriching you might do is if you have an address, a lot of these tools let you add in demographic information. Well, approximately how wealthy are they, or what bracket are they in, right? If you have specific names, they might be able to give you background and other types of things. So they can give you some interesting demographic information that also becomes fairly valuable. Right, and usually your data quality will embed into your ETL. Right, so your ETL is moving data from one place to another. You'll put your data quality rules in there, and then as it's transforming, it'll clean the data and fix it and load it into where it needs to be. So this huge value. One of the ways that we were selling this to our customers was if you just looked at their CRMs, usually around 10% of the addresses were bad. And that meant that just on mailings alone, or just mailings that they would send out in terms of bills, they were already spending more than it would cost to implement this. Right? Let alone the value that you have for hospitals in terms of making sure that they have the right information about patients and how they're treated. So some companies of this are Informatica, IBM, Cilium, Talent, and again, this will cost you from 100K to like 2 million. Next is application integration. Right, so these are ETL appear from point to point. You also have a number of applications that are great for, so let's say you have 6 different applications, and every application talks to every other one. That's 36 different kind of integrations that you need to write. It becomes a pain in the ass. So you have applications that make it a lot easier to standardize. And there are 2 mainly. There's Enterprise Service Bus, and there is Enterprise Service Bus and Exchange Hubs. And the way they work is they translate, every application will translate its data into a common standard, and then every other application knows how to read that common standard. Right? So instead of every application to talk to every other application, now they just need to do one transformation. And this makes kind of, the service bus is in real time, and Exchange Hub means someone publishes data to a database that stays there, and the people can subscribe to that. I've got 2 more, and then we get to some fun stuff. Data exchange is similarly a way to connect to outside entities. So it lets you manage partners and who's sending you data and who you're sending data to. It lets you then get data that someone has sent you electronically, whether it's EDI, X2, FTP, web service, and route it to business processes to automatically get processed. So this is very common in retail companies that will receive orders, or manufacturers. Banks, for instance, that have payment hubs, right? So Swift messaging can all be done with data exchange, where a bank needs to interact with a lot of other banks, right? They don't want to use email, so they'll use an application like this to automate the entire process. Okay. And MDM, this is like one of the second last. This is huge, and probably the most expensive of the lot. So basically, you have multiple applications that handle customers, products, and vendors, right? MDM stands for Master Data Management. You might also have multiple lines of business, right? You might have a, what do you call it? If you're Electrolux, you might have a line of business for kitchenware. You might have a line of business for home cleaning, right? And they might have separate systems and separate applications. So now you have separate versions of customers stored in these different applications. Okay, so what if you want that information to potentially cross-sell or upsell or support a customer? You want a single view. How do you get that single view? Right? So another example, your market might infer data might kind of contradict your customer support. Maybe the phone numbers are different, the contact information is different. So the way you do this is master data management, and these are like really, really big implementations and very expensive software. Usually starts at $1 million and goes to like 10 million. Just the software alone, let alone the implementation. But what it really does, and it needs buy-in from the very top, but what it actually does is it's a platform for pulling data from all of the different applications that you have, automatically and intelligently matching between them. And here, this is where the interesting part is it has what's called a trust framework. So it allows data stewards, users, to define, I trust this system more than that system for this bit of information. Right? And it takes data from all the different systems, and looks field by field, and you define how to create a golden record. Which system do I trust more for which piece of data? Which for name, which for address, which for goods bought, which for product, etc. And usually the things that people master are customer, vendor, product. Those are the three kind of main ones that are commonly mastered. Right? And what this does is it lets you get a single view of your customer and everything they're buying and every interaction they have with you as an organization. Same with vendors. So vendors are a really important one. Electrolux is a good example. They have 50 sites around the world. About 7 or 8 of them were buying stuff from the same vendor, right? But they all had different prices, and they all had different deals and contracts. So by actually seeing that they were using the same vendor, they were able to consolidate and get better terms. Okay? So you build a golden record, and then you can take that record and publish it to your data warehouse, publish it back to your source systems, so that they have the correct information. And then we get to advanced analytics. Right, so here, this is your geeks with data. Data science and machine learning. So kind of we went through this a little earlier. You use existing data to build predictive models, and you can anticipate events and react quickly, right? Everything from customer preferences, market shifts, demand prediction, disease spread, right? It's a huge competitive advantage, and you somehow need to get your data to the geeks, and usually that's done via they might look at the data warehouse, or they might look at some other store, and then they'll use tools like R, Python, SAS is another one, to kind of build these models and kind of give you insight. Now, the one point here is that most data scientists don't know and don't like to acquire, clean, transform data, right? They like building models. They also don't like building enterprise applications, which will continuously give you data, continuously give you insight. They like running their model once and giving you the results, right? And that's kind of a challenge in terms of being able to take the value that they have and implement that into real time. Now, Google and Amazon are exceptions because they're technology companies, but this is kind of your average company and your average data. So, clearly there's a fear of data, and rightfully so, because it's really expensive. Right? You grow organically into massive applications of data. It's disconnected, incorrect, inconsistent, not trusted. The business issue that the systems are really expensive, and you need administrators and developers. And the systems you can afford aren't necessarily the systems that you need, right? And by the way, half of IT projects fail, right? So all this money that you're spending, half the time it's going to fail, which really sucks. From a user issue, right, getting the information from these systems takes weeks, and it's difficult to explain what you need. You might not know what you need, right? And the data return might be wrong or might be out of date. And that's basically why so many organizations are not data-driven. and why it's difficult to get. So there's an industry shift, and this is happening now because of the new things that are enabling it to be much easier to become data-driven. Right? The industry shift is first is cloud and SaaS software. Right? So software, instead of having to buy the software and own it on your premises and your own servers, it sits in the cloud and you pay subscription for it. It's much, much cheaper, which means that now it's not only billion-dollar organizations that can afford this, smaller companies can afford it as well. Okay? Less maintenance, significantly lower cost. It's also becoming a lot easier to do these integrations. So as the software becomes kind of living in the cloud and continues to live in the cloud, people create kind of out-of-the-box connectors for these software. So now you can really easily connect to applications instead of having to pay a lot of money and buy data integration software. Okay? A lot of the tools that are coming out now for data quality and for ETL as well have kind of user-driven web tools where it basically makes it a lot easier for someone who isn't technical to build rules and to kind of put things together. Right? So enabling users to do it themselves instead of relying on IT, which presents a huge bottleneck. Distributed data governance is a really interesting one. So this is that data quality, these data quality rules that you have. Instead of sitting in your ETL, you can put these rules on the front end of your application so that when someone enters in data, it can validate if the data is correct and make the user actually put in correct data. And you see this on the web forms that you use all the time, but now you're able to do this on kind of almost any application. And one of the final ones is a data lake. Anyone know what a data lake is? So there was an open source kind of software that was started by Yahoo, Facebook, and Google, grew into Hadoop. And basically, the concept of a data lake is it's really cheap, very large storage space that you can just throw all your data. And whereas a data warehouse, you need to build a model for how the data is going to sit, and a data lake you don't. You just put the data on it. Right? So it's very easy. Whatever application you have, it just kind of throws the data onto the data.
Is that like structured and unstructured data?
It could be structured, it could be unstructured. You don't need to transform it. Okay? Right. So you can store the data without complex data models. And that's really key because it makes it a lot easier. You don't need to think about it, and it's really cheap, so you don't need to worry about paying for storage. And then you have advanced analytics, which are kind of improving to be a lot more out of the box, so that you don't necessarily need a huge data feed. So there's a company called ThoughtSpot that's doing that, where you just point it at your data lake, and it automatically kind of you can write Google queries almost like verbatim and start screening. But the most important advancement is this data discovery tool. Okay. So those of you that have used Tableau or Click, that's what this is. And the point is that this lets you explore data across multiple sources without needing to know SQL or complex applications. Right? And that's really huge value because now anyone in the organization can use this tool to look at all of the data that you have in your company. And that's been the biggest change and the biggest shift that we see in terms of companies being able to adopt this. And that's why Tableau has kind of ballooned and exploded and everyone loves it. And that's why the kind of traditional reporting tools are starting to lose their luster because this is so powerful. Because you now no longer need to depend on IT, anyone can access the data directly. Right? So you can generate exciting charts, graphs, and insights. And it basically democratizes data for all. So the new data-driven landscape is where things are going to be going. Two more slides. So applications that are traditionally on-premise are going to be moving to the cloud. We see this with HR software, companies like SuccessFactors. We see this with CRM software. We have with the move to Salesforce, we see this with ERP software. People are using Dynamics in the cloud, Microsoft Dynamics in the cloud. So all the on-premise stuff, a lot of the on-premise software is moving to the cloud, right? And that means that overall it's lower cost, lower maintenance, almost no upfront costs, right? You don't need to hire a system administrator. You don't need to buy servers, okay? Now, the quality and integrity of the data in these systems can be ensured through kind of that data quality and cloud MDM. So there are cloud versions which are much cheaper of master data management, which lets you master your data from all your different cloud applications. Okay, so it's cheaper, it's easier, and you can be more comfortable that your data is trusted. You can use application integration with out-of-the-box connectivity. So a lot of these applications now have their kind of web service connectors, and they can connect with one another fairly easily. Partner integration, right? So you can, that same data exchange product is now available in the cloud as well, right? So so now you can integrate with external entities, with other companies, with other financial institutions in an automated fashion as well. Right, so you can have real-time data store on a data lake that's stored in the cloud on Amazon, and you can have self-service discovery and exploration with Tableau. So this kind of horizon and landscape is much easier, much lower cost, much more reliable, and how organizations can really start becoming data-driven in a much easier fashion. Right, and then obviously you can have your advanced analytics running on your data lake to give you that extra insight. So just a few words of caution. We're not there yet. Companies still have a lot of on-premise applications, and will continue for the next 5 to 10 years. That's not going to change. So there's basically going to be kind of a hybrid model. And even in a hybrid model, there's still a lot of value. You have to be careful of the data swamp, which is if you have this data lake, which you can put all of your data on. If you continue to put all your data and you don't pay any attention at all to whether or not it's clean or governed on the way in, then it becomes a swamp and you don't know what's there, and it just becomes unusable and pointless. Another problem that we have is too much data, right? With Internet of Things, if you're generating terabytes of data off of every machine in every factory, can you really send all of that to one central data lake and start analyzing? The answer is no, and you shouldn't, right? And the response is that you use distributed processing. So we're going to see a lot more. You'll build the rules and the processing kind of maybe in a central location, then you'll push it to be processed locally, and you'll have kind of near the machines themselves processing that'll take it and kind of reduce the data as much as possible into whatever needs to go to the main kind of hub. And lastly, but not least, is security. Security is a huge issue. The traditional model for security at organizations is this kind of moat model, which is you have your firewall, and then within the firewall, everything's fine. As long as no one gets in the firewall, you're happy. But the reality is someone gets in the firewall, and you have employees inside the firewall that have access to sensitive data, and you have to accept target and at the Department of Defense and everywhere, right? And especially as applications go online, how do you ensure data security? Right? And basically where this is going is kind of security is moving to a distributed model, where wherever data is stored, it's always going to be encrypted and always going to be secure there. Right? So instead of relying on just a fence around your organization, data will always be stored in secure. That's it. Questions? Get to here for now. Yeah.
How would this apply to a company that's making their company as a member of the company or service provider of the company or whatever?
So this is everything on the second last slide was very relevant. So if you asked me, 5 years ago, I would say it kind of sucks to be a $20 million company because it's way too expensive. But right now, with the move to kind of SaaS and cloud offerings, your ETL software you can get for subscription for either open source, where it's completely free, like Talon, or subscription offerings, which are a few thousand a year. Right? So now you can connect your systems for kind of much lower cost. Same with data quality software. So all these things are becoming a lot cheaper, and you could basically do the exact same thing that I went through for much lower cost.
That include like firewall or house?
Well, the firewall plays less of an issue because the data itself is going to be encrypted and secure wherever it sits. It depends if you're using applications that are on-premise or in the cloud. I would recommend most of it be in the cloud.
You don't need that much Amazon with it.
Right. So you can create kind of VPNs and virtual VPNs within there, and then you can have them integrated, have whatever applications are running on your AWS servers integrate directly with the other applications that you have. Right. So it's the exact same thing. The point is that instead of everything being on-premise, you're leveraging AWS for a data lake. You're going to need some sort of SaaS ETL tool to integrate your data and to push the data onto the data lake. And you're going to want to use kind of Tableau as well, or Click or some other data discovery tool to be able to analyze your data. But the main point is put all your data in one central place. Make sure you have the ETL and data quality tools to pull and correct and cleanse that data and master it, and then start giving your everyday user access to it so that they can start seeing the insights they need. Cool. I'm happy to talk further as well.
Yeah, what's the you would want to get smarter at this, like I understand the data, understand the media structure, say if I want to get smarter, how do you?
Shoot me an email. We'll talk. Cool.
So your company, Eccella,
Yeah.
where, like, out of everything you showed us, what is it mostly, what's your value proposition?
We do basically everything up until the advanced part, which we're starting to do now. Historically, we came from, like when I started the company, it was, we started off with ETL, and then we moved into data quality, and then we moved into data exchange, and then we moved into literally the progression that I went through here, not in the same order, but we went through as a company in terms of adding more and more value. And now we're doing a lot of master data management, and those really large implementations that, for instance, LexisNexis, which is a legal and news aggregator. We're building a global marketing data warehouse for them. So they have, 50, 60 countries that they're in. Every single one of those countries has a marketing data warehouse where they store information about prospects, about customers. They then allocate customers to their salespeople, and they keep track of everything from external sources about leads, etc. So we can kind of pull that in, master it, make sure it's correct, and give them a single view across everything. So we're kind of across everywhere, and the final place we've gotten to now is data strategy, where we're really working with organizations from the beginning of, okay, how do you do it? And then what are the systems you need to build, and then, okay, let's
So, do you need to manage them, or do you train someone?
Ideally, we train someone at the company to handle them. The way the market is going, everything is becoming more, and that's a traditional model of on-premise, where companies wanted dedicated people of their own to be able to manage their applications. As things move to the cloud, and applications move to the cloud, and systems move to the cloud, people aren't going to want to do that anymore. They're going to want to just pay one subscription fee for someone to just offload it completely. So we're actually looking to move it. Yeah.
Do you always do? Sorry. Do you also give the company consulting, like change management, and all that kind of things? I came from the media industry and traditional print company.
Right.
We're trying to on the very there. So I was like, it was like your whole first part of your presentation. I was ringing a bell one of the next, like all the hell I went through. So, and like you said at the very beginning, the biggest hurdle wasn't necessarily technical at the time, but human.
Yes.
The human element of it.
Yeah.
Many of these companies in these industries are traditional, mostly the cultures, not easy to change, and this is a big change of mindset.
Yes.
Doing things.
So the biggest thing I can say is that we specifically don't do change management as much. We do training, but the idea is that if you make it as easy as possible, then someone will want to do it, right? And that really is a point. Is up until what do you call it, data discovery and self-service kind of analytics, it was really hard, right? And it didn't make sense for anyone to go through the work of trying to get this information because it just took too long. And half the time it was wrong, and it was a pain in the ass. So it was easier to go with your gut, or to use whatever you have. But if you make it so incredibly easy for everyone to do that, and then you highlight it, and then you show the value of it, then it starts to permeate the organization. But you're right, it's
Have you thought of like adding to your portfolio of services, change management, company, or
I think that would be great.
I think it could really
Yeah.
like
Get
get you.
right here.
Yeah. No, I mean like.
No, I agree. I think
it's so complementary.
you're 100% right. We came from a technical place, so it's interesting kind of moving on to the business side and kind of going there, and we've gotten there now with data strategy, but you're 100% right. That's really the organizational aspect. How do you change that? Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Let's go.
I don't know.